Hey there, I'm Tim.
And I'm Luisa.
And we're two movie lovers here to show our appreciation to those people in the credits that make a film extraordinary.
That's right. This is a podcast centered around young upcoming talent whose tremendous dedication allowed them to shine in this crazy town.
This is Hollywood Rising. All right, hey Luisa, how you doing?
Hi, Tim. I'm doing great. How about you?
Good, I'm good. I'm psyched to start this episode 7 or whatever. Could be our last episode, could be our best and last. You think it's going to be our last?
No.
Okay. I like your attitude. I like your positive spin. Well, basically, I think it could be our last because this guy, he is the reason films are made. I mean, he's a director of photography. And if this guy doesn't do his job, you don't have a movie, right?
I have no idea.
Prove me wrong. Okay, this guy, basically, if he doesn't photograph the actors, then what do you have? A bunch of sounds? Then you have a podcast, basically. And who wants to go see a podcast?
No one.
No one wants to see a podcast. So we have a director of photography, a young guy, up and coming. He's done music videos. He's done commercials. He's done feature films. Director of photography, Nick Ramsey. How you doing, Nick?
Doing well. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good to have you. So you are a director of photography. That's your technical title on most gigs. But are you also a cinematographer or a cameraman, or what's the difference between the three?
I think that cinematographer and director of photography are pretty interchangeable. You know, like Roger Deakins, he chooses director of photography, so I kind of follow in that line. I'll take that title as well, but I'm happy with cinematographer as well. Some people say like cinematographer might operate the camera more often or, than a director of photography. But like I just said, Deakins, he's always operating his own camera and he's got the director of photography title. So I think it's just kind of like 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, with which between those that you choose, just kind of like some people are like, oh, there's only one director on set, so I'm a cinematographer, not the director of photography. I hear those kind of arguments, and then like getting into cameraman, those kind of things, that could be a camera operator or like a videographer, and they're just going to be in charge of framing and whatever's happening with the camera, like actual operating versus the overall image, kind of thing.
Lighting and framing.
And emotion, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I see. Okay, and you handle all that.
All of that.
Okay, so you're a lighting guy too.
Yeah, definitely. Like head of the lighting department, head of the camera department, everything that you're seeing, like we're making decisions to create that image.
So you don't think there's differences between each title? It's just a title and you do a little bit of everything?
Between cinematographer and director of photography, I think those two titles are very interchangeable, right? Like there is a lighting department and a camera department, but the director of photography or cinematographer is the head of both of those departments. So I coordinate very closely with the camera operators, first ACs on the camera side, and then like gaffer, key grip, that kind of stuff on the lighting side.
If you're ready to shoot something, how would you prep and what would be your job while shooting? Just briefly.
I think the first thing that happens is just like meeting with the director, producer and director, but mainly it's the director that you're trying to create this relationship with, get on the same page with, see what their vision is for the project. They're going to give you things like pictures and diagrams and references, and you're going to look at all those things and digest that, then kind of come back with some plans and some suggestions, maybe like I like to say like putting the cherry on top of the project. Now, not going to come back to try to change things, but kind of try to come back and like make things better. What can we do to like hear what you're trying to say and then help you say it even better?
What are the most important qualities that a DP, a director of photography, must possess?
I think like first and foremost, it seems like the DP is going to be doing a lot of things with images, and that's definitely the images are number one priority, but it's a lot of managing. You're dealing with multiple departments, multiple people, communicating a vision from the director down to the gaffer, to the key grip, how we're going to create that lighting, communicating to the camera, how we're going to, create that emotion, those moves. You have to coordinate with the AD to figure out like how long is it going to be taking to, set these things up. You're kind of like negotiating for time and resources with yourself and other departments. So there's a lot of coordinating that goes into just like making all that happen. And then on top of all that, that's like what's happening on set. Then there's the whole dynamic of politics and just like getting jobs and marketing yourself on the outside. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into it that are outside of just creating an image, And every project is different, right? It might be myself and an AC on a project, or it might be like myself and 20 other people. So it just depends on the project and what you're trying to do, and it's always different.
Since you've worked in music videos and commercials and feature films and short films, what are the main differences when you work on something short versus like a feature?
Sure. I think obviously the time that goes into it, there's going to be a lot of time that goes into that feature film. You're probably going to get the script a couple months early. You're going to have time to read it and digest it a little bit, come up with some really good ideas. Hopefully you're having a lot of conversations and meetings with the director to figure out what they're thinking, the producer to figure out like logistics, those kinds of things, versus like and you're really putting everything into that. You're spending months with this one project. That's like the feature film life versus music videos and commercials. Like they might call you and say, hey, we're shooting in 3 or 4 days. So you don't really have the same kind of timeline, and you do have a chance to talk to the director, but you're maybe not going to like have a full-on 3 or 4 meetings where you talk about every single little shot. It's more going to be a situation where it's a quick conversation. They're sending you their shot list, their pitch deck. They're telling you how they want things to feel, but they've got 20 other people that they're trying to talk to get through there to get the project done. So they're giving you as much information as you can, but it's less back and forth and less time spent with the project, just faster, quicker decisions. And then it's also like focusing on different things, right? Like a music video, in reality, it's just like make it look as cool as you can all the time, right? So like that one's going to be the most kind of off the cuff. There are going to be some bigger music videos that you're going to be doing a lot of planning and specific things, but a lot of times it's just like, well, we know we're going to go in there and we're going to get a close-up and a wide shot and through the entire performance, and these are the things that we want to do to make it look cool, versus the feature, you're going in there and you're crafting every shot. You're trying to say something with every time you change an angle, so there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of thought that's going into every single little decision that's being made. Every lighting setup is supposed to convey a specific emotion, and all the things we're doing is there to try to like help the scene, help the actors express visually what's going on, anything we can do to bolster their performances versus taking away from them, those kinds of things.
When you're like working on a feature and you're on location, how do you manage being away from home for so long?
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be tough. We have 12-hour days, so like we are gone for a long time, and then we're working the entire time that we're gone. If it's like 12-hour day and it takes you 30 to 45 minutes to get to set, and you got to eat lunch, eat dinner, take a shower and talk to a couple people, now you're starting to cut into your like 8 hours of sleep. So really it's just, I'm very lucky to have a very understanding family. My wife has been very supportive of everything that I've been trying to do. We do our best to, stay in touch, talk as much as possible, send each other messages and things throughout the day. And, like any other job, it's always this struggle of work life and home life and getting that balance. So I'm lucky that I don't work every single day 9 to 5. So I do have like one week I'll be completely busy and I won't be able to do anything with the family. And then the next week I'll have a couple of days where I'll have the whole day off and I can spend the entire day with them.
As far as being on location, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in your reel, didn't you have a feature project that was shot in all 50 states?
I did, yes.
Did you shoot? Did you go to all 50?
It was between myself and the director.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, we did a lot of things. The director just loves to travel. So, he kind of helped use that as an excuse to just get out and go all over the place. And the story kind of takes place on trains. So that's a big theme. So a lot of those states we were hitting, like riding trains through it, getting on the Zephyr in like Colorado and taking it through to California, riding through in the mountains. And, we got some beautiful stuff and like definitely, we got yelled at a couple times for like opening the back door of the train during the tunnel and like shooting out of it. But luckily we rolled out of our film right as like the conductor or whoever came back there and caught us. So
is it how long did that particular shoot take?
I think I would say It probably, I mean, shooting wise, it probably took about a year to shoot. And then, he's edited it several times, and he's always going back to it and tweaking it and coming up with some
How
cool
was
stuff.
your wife with that situation?
I mean, like I said, there's a lot of times where I'm traveling and gone, and then I'll be back for a couple of weeks too. So, we have a time that we're apart, and that, maybe the distance helps the heart grow fonder, and then, spend as much time doing stuff together as we can. It's basically just us kind of out here in California. I'm from Virginia originally, so a lot of our family is back home. So I'm mainly just trying to stay in touch whenever we can. And
What's been your favorite place you visited through work?
I mean, Hawaii is just gorgeous. So
Yeah.
I got to shoot in waterfalls with Fabio, the model from the 90s.
What?
Yeah, so
That's awesome.
it was pretty awesome.
God.
We you work in waterfalls? He's all I do is work in waterfalls. It's great hair, great body. He was making millions of dollars when he was 16 years old, as an Italian model. And, luckily he's still doing it. So
On any given gig, I guess it depends on what the project is or whatever, but are you normally given much creative freedom?
yeah, I think that I am given plenty of creative freedom on most projects. I think, it depends specifically who I'm working with, who's the director. I think every director is a little bit different. I like to say, they're kind of like the glass of the water, and the cinematographer has to be the water that fills it up. We have to mold ourselves to the way that director likes to work. Certainly we can pitch certain things that we like to do, and hopefully they're into that, but ultimately they're the boss. It's their vision. So trying to fit as much as I can kind of into their box.
What if you're on a project and you don't have a lot of prep time, like on a music video or something you mentioned earlier, and the director is just not, you guys just don't see eye to eye. He just wants to set up these wild shots, and you're just you're not seeing what he's seeing. What happens?
I mean, ultimately, we kind of have to figure out how to get onto the same page, and probably at the end of the day, I have to bend a little more than they do. I guess in the end, it's really just about I kind of figure out ways to pitch things and get in the headspace of the director early. I'm trying to make decisions that support the director and listen to if they're saying no, why are they saying no? What can my next suggestion do to be a little bit closer to what they're doing? So I do a lot to get onto the same page with them. So I find that, I definitely have smaller disagreements. So I want to look this way and I want to look that way kind of situation. But usually I find that I'm either able to talk them into seeing my way or figure out a way to get what I need while getting what they need. Because ultimately getting what they need that's why I'm there, to support their vision. But on a music video, most directors are giving you a lot of freedom. In a music video, you just want it to look really cool. So I don't have a lot of music video directors that, if it looks interesting and cool, that are going to say, no, let's do it differently. It's about just kind of getting ahead of it, right? And figuring out what that director's looking for, what's making them choose the shots that they're choosing, and then trying to use those decisions to my advantage, I guess.
What about TV commercials? Are they similar to music videos, or?
Certainly, when you're working on a commercial, they do want everything to look good. You do want everything to kind of sing, but it depends on what kind of commercial you're shooting, right? Ultimately, in a commercial, you're selling a product most of the time. So making that product look the best is usually first and foremost, You are trying to bring in some flair and always have this extra, gloss to it, high production value. But there is much more of a specific thing that you're going for. Usually you have the director and probably 3 or 4 clients looking at the monitor, and they all have an idea of what they want and how bright it should be and those things. I would say that's probably the conversation that we have the most. It's how bright should it be, right? This is in this modern era of cinematography, everybody's going really dark, right? And even, bright, happy commercials, right? In the stadium for Nike, right? It's super dark, just kind of the style these days.
Yeah.
So, and I love to shoot dark. So I constantly and probably making it a little bit too dark, and then we kind of have to go back and forth of like, oh, maybe we need a little more fill, you know. And
When you're working with talent, because I saw that you work in the Patrick Star commercial, how involved they get in the process? Like you said that there were like 4 people beside you and the director watching to the monitor. Do they have that flexibility of coming in and just saying, I don't like how I look here?
Absolutely. I mean, Patrick Star specifically, I mean, he has a big kind of entourage that he runs with. So we'll have like a whole separate room with monitors and things for all of his people to be seeing, you know. So he's very, very particular. I mean, not in a bad way, but he'll come over and
he knows
say,
what
hey,
he wants.
can I get can we get a little more light in this area, or like I want a little softer or something like that. He's very collaborative on set, and then you know he has a very big hand in the creation of everything, right? Like I think influencers like him or Trisha Paytas is another one that I work with a lot. They do a lot themselves, right? They've kind of created their brand from the ground up. So they're doing a lot of this promotion and producing and all of this stuff. They're wearing all of those hats. They're like coming up with the concept. They're paying for the concept. They're doing all of this themselves. I would say in some regards, like a Patrick Star or Trisha might have more say in some of these projects than
What a balance that is. I mean, you have to balance technical and aesthetic, creative, you know, and then dealing with egos, political. I mean, you're that guy. I mean, you basically, all those things, all those roads hit you or go through you in your department. Isn't that intimidating?
It can be. Like I said, you think that I'm a cinematographer, I'm a director of photography, I'm going to be making images, like the lighting is what I'm going to be paying attention to the most. And that's definitely is what's happening, but there is a lot of political stuff and managerial stuff that's happening. And I think that like I was very surprised, you know, at how much of a manager, you know, you really have to be. And the bigger the project, the more things you have to deal with, right? Like talking about those features, you know, sometimes shot listing meetings can kind of just turn into like a time that you're talking about all the issues that you're going through and like helping them get through it, you know? So there's a lot of different things that you're dealing with that have nothing to do with cameras, lenses, lights, or anything.
Right. It's a big psych session.
It is. It's wild.
Yeah.
The people that are really good at dealing with people are probably the best DPs. You know, they have that aesthetic thing, and then they also just are really good with people.
You're good at people. You have half
me?
of the job like done.
Oh,
you go.
Wow. Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Wow. Thanks. Wow. With the compliment. Look, I've shut down. I don't know what to say. Well, talking about specific DPs, you brought up Deakins. Who are some of your influences out there?
I mean, I would say probably like my early influences, DP-wise, would probably be like Robert Richardson, Deakins, you know. Like I always have loved Tarantino stuff, and Richardson was shooting a lot of his stuff, so I've always really loved that, you know, Kill Bill. Richardson, like, he'll just have some hard lights that are coming in every now and then, and they're just kind of like super hot, and maybe it's not so realistic, but it serves the story very well, I think. It usually serves the mood really well, and I just think it's like aesthetically just like a really strong choice.
Yeah. Sets the tone.
Yeah, you know, it just kind of like, it's like he lives right there on the edge, and it's kind of interesting. And then just like getting into more modern people, you know, like I feel like television is really taking off, and like streaming stuff. So
Cinematic,
like
too, you know?
very cinematic, very dark. So like Ben Cutchins, he's like the DP from like Ozark. Marcel Rev, the DP from Euphoria. There's a lot of DPs that do both of those shows, but they were both kind of like on the ground with the first seasons kind of thing. Some younger guys like John Chima and Powell Robinson, they're like a lot younger. I kind of feel like it's easier to like look at their work and try to learn from that and chase that. You know, they're very like accessible on Instagram. I can ask people questions. So yeah, it's just like a really interesting time.
Are there a lot of guys that still go old school with film? Is there a lot of that out there, or is it all just primarily video now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you know, there's a lot of film. I don't think film will ever go away completely. It's very popular, especially like now, you know, and it's very popular on Instagram, right? A lot of people are shooting 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter. And
Are they really?
yeah. It's like a lower budget job that may not have a bunch of, they don't have a bunch of budget to go out for get lights and things. They just go out at like magic hour with some 16 millimeter and, get a really good sunset and, have a lot of grain and texture that comes from the film. And it's definitely coming back and getting really popular. Right when I was coming out of film school, you could kind of get 35 millimeter cameras really cheap. The rental house always had a 16 millimeter or something available for you. And over the past few years, it's just gotten to the point where the prices are back up and the cameras are
wow, the
out
demand has
being
increased
used.
and the prices are up. Wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
So, there's not necessarily any new processing centers or anything like that popping up. There are some smaller boutique ones. In the grand scheme of things, of like where things used to be, where Hollywood was, everybody was pumping through photocam in these big, processing centers. Like, it's not like that. But on the indie level, people are really trying to get back into it. And a lot of DPs are, trying to buy their own film and shoot on film all the time so that, if everybody sees me shooting on film, then I'm going to get a job, hopefully shooting film. So.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad that it's still out there.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll ever go away. I mean, I was really lucky. My class was like the last class at Chapman that really got to shoot film, and the school provided film for us. I think it's just like a great way to learn, right? And it's a great medium.
I'm so glad, though, the film is still prominent, still out there, and guys are doing it and wanting to do it. You know, and fighting for it. I think that's great.
No, I think it's awesome. And there's directors out there that, that are much younger than Nolan that are trying to shoot everything on film. And certain people are at this point getting recognized for that, and they're getting known as like the film guy or the film director, and everything they do is on film. I mean, that's a lot of what happens is when you do one thing in this industry, it kind of, you get known for that and you continue to do it. So film definitely has like a look and a feeling that it's hard to capture with digital. I do think that you can get pretty close, and the digital cameras are amazing these days, but it's just, the sensors haven't gotten to the point where they can capture as much light as film can.
I think like audio, with just having that latitude, whether you're analog audio versus digital, you don't have compression or you don't have as much, it's more forgiving in film. You're able to capture blown out light and still have some detail, so maybe it's a comparable thing there.
Yeah, and it's just something that's kind of fun about the more analog formats too, It is very stressful to not really know exactly what you have until you get it back from the lab, but it's also kind of fun, and there's definitely things that happen that in some regards you might think they take away from it, and other ways they add things that you never knew about, like light hits the gate in a specific way and there's a specific flare that happens, and maybe you get lucky and it's right at the right time and you love it, or maybe it tears across the person's face and it messes up the shot completely, and then it's terrible. But I don't like a very clean image, so I'm really happy when those little happy accidents kind of happen.
They did it for decades before video cameras came out. So,
are you often involved with post-production and the final look of a project, or it depends, or definitely not?
Yeah, I mean, I do my best to be involved as much as possible. At this point in my career, I would say more than half of the projects that I shoot, I color grade them as well. So I'm very involved with those. I'm doing all of the color work later, and a lot of the music videos, stuff like that. And then there's other times when we'll hire out a colorist, and at those times I'm still watching, trying to like communicate to them what we were trying to capture on set and then what we want to do with it when it gets through to them. So, if it's a big look change, we're going super contrasty in black and white or something for like a Sin City kind of feel, like I'll kind of be involved in the conversation going back and forth to kind of set that look and get things to where they need to be. I mean, if a director shows me a project and asks me my opinion on an edit, I'll certainly give them to them. But I probably have less of a hand in the editing side, but once it comes to finishing the image, I'd say I'm very involved.
What's a common myth about your profession that you'd like to debunk?
Well, I mean, I think the first one is just, getting into it, I definitely thought the thing I was going to be doing most was dealing with the image and creating really pretty pictures and that kind of stuff. And I do get to do that. But it is, I would say the majority of the work is managerial and dealing with other people and different departments and logistics. And, it's kind of like being a project manager, more than it is a creative position. It definitely, I get a lot of creativity, but I have a lot of logistical and managerial things to take care of.
That's what I thought of. I mean, this is a big surprise to me to hear that you're involved with so much managerial. Like you said, it's creative, but it's also this. It's also managing and politics and all the BS that goes with it, like any job,
You got to hit the budget. You got to make that all these creative decisions work with logistical decisions and bring it into reality. So it's a lot of like thinking of what would be the coolest lights that I want to use for this, and getting that list nice and set, and then being like, all right, well, this is way too expensive. So how can we adjust our plan to something that's more affordable? One day I'll be at the level where I can just ask them to build the house in the direction that I want them to build it so that the sun comes through the window at the right time. But I'm definitely in the level of trying to solve problems creatively at this point versus just being able to ask for whatever I want.
What advice would you give someone that wants to pursue a similar career?
It's tough. Definitely it's kind of like to get to the big levels that everybody kind of wants to be at. It's kind of like trying to be on like a professional team as far as like how hard it is and how much work it takes to get your craft to where it needs to be, and it comes down to luck too. Opportunity meets preparation, right? So you got to be working hard and ready to go, but ultimately it's a lot of right place, right time, and like I happened to meet this person who was shooting this project and they introduced me to their friend, and now I'm shooting that project. So I think it's just about doing everything you can to put yourself in a position that you're ready for these opportunities and you're around where opportunities are going to be. Being from Virginia, I had to figure out a way to like, how am I going to move to California and be surrounded by all those types of people? And after coming out here, it's just like there's so many other good people and people around you. It just kind of raises everybody up. So yeah, I think it's just about doing everything you can to network, meet as many people as possible, be as nice as you can, and have as many people wanting you back around. Because these projects, we talked about how long we're on set together. You don't want to be on set with a jerk, no matter how good you are. Even though it looks awesome, they don't want to be on set for 12 hours with somebody that makes their life miserable.
When you moved to LA, did you know exactly what you wanted to do, or has it evolved with time when you went to school and when you started working? Has it changed the vision that you had or the title that you were pursuing?
It ties in sort of what I was going to ask you too, is like, when did you even know you wanted to do that?
Exactly.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did know what I wanted to do when I came out here. When I was in undergrad, I took a directing class and I got selected to be the director of the project. For the class. At the end of the class, the teacher, he wrote me a little, summary or, review kind of how he thought I did. And one of the things he said was, well, I thought you did a great job, directing the camera and, you were very conscious of the camera, but I didn't feel like you did a lot working with the actors and talking about emotion and those things. I thought about it and I was like, well, that's kind of a negative for the class, but I don't really want to deal with those things. I want to play with the camera. So it was kind of like his note that kind of made me realize maybe I don't want to be the director. I want to play with the camera and the lights. So I decided that I was going to take a loan out for grad school, which, I don't know if that's what I would recommend doing necessarily. It's a big loan. I would actually recommend living next to the film school and just working on film school sets every weekend, right? If I could do it again, that's what I would do. I would just make friends with some of the people that were in film school and work on their sets every weekend. Because the people that did that by the end of school, when we were seniors or working on our thesis projects, they were getting invited in to talk to the teachers. That's where we got most of our education anyway. You do learn in the class, but really where you learn is going out on set and doing it. You can watch videos on the internet, you can read things, you can do all that, but it's never going to be the same as when you just go out and you actually shoot.
If you couldn't work in your field, what would you be doing?
I just always like to do different things. So that's one of the things that I really like about this field is every job is different, completely different, 100%. we're always doing something different. So I would probably be some type of entrepreneur, and doing multiple things, a little real estate, a little bit of small business, whatever I could do kind of thing. But I think ultimately I would want to be working for myself and something kind of creative. But realistically, one of the things I tried to do is just never have that backup plan, right? Like, going to be a cinematographer, and that's it.
This has been a really fun interview. I'm still convinced, prove me wrong, that Nick could just go out and just make a movie himself. He doesn't need a director. He doesn't need actors. He doesn't need sound. He could just do it. He's responsible for the movies we see. If there's no Nick, there's nothing. There's no Netflix.
Netflix, no movies, please.
Right.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Hollywood Rising is produced by Tim Tucciarello and LNA.
Sound mixer, Mike Shu.
Music by Jonathan Byron. Special thanks to Kami Asgar, Richard Burnett, Sam Fan, and Brian Wessel.
This is a Sputnik Media production.
In association with Mr. 101 Productions.
He's Mr. 101.
Sputnik Media.